Abramson.
Abramson. Hey, Ashley, how you doing?
Good. I'm so happy and excited to be here today with you and to just have a wonderful conversation.
I know. I really do feel that conversation, if you just take time to just listen to somebody and just create that space, I feel like you get so much more out of it.
Mhm.
If you just listen.
Right. And not only like listen, but enter with no preconceptions,
Yeah.
right? I think I used the right word, but really just
Yeah.
coming and forgetting the past, forgetting the future, and just here in this moment. I'm not gonna pre-predict who D is or what
Right.
she comes to the table with, but like a 2-year-old, just
Right.
really curious and just allow whatever to come. And yeah, I think that's like the most magical, beautiful moments that we experience.
I agree. And I also feel like it's really an art.
Mm-hmm.
They say there's an art to communication. Well, it's the same with it's with listening too, because when you're listening to understand somebody rather than listening to judge them,
Mm-hmm.
and also not, like you said, not having, oh, well, this is who I think Ashley is. It doesn't matter who you think is what, because you're probably wrong.
Right.
So the only way to know is to allow that space.
But I think the biggest piece too, D, I know for me on my journey
Mhm.
was learning to listen to myself, to really understand who I was. And once I was able to truly hear my own inner voice and understand myself is only when I was able to really hold that space for others, because I'm a firm believer you can't give someone else something you don't already give yourself. So like when
Right.
parents say, I love my children more than I love myself, like that's not even physically possible. Like you can only love your children as much as you love you. Um, and I feel it's the same for listening. You can only listen to others as much as you are able to listen to yourself.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's wisdom, dropping wisdom.
Wisdom drop.
Well, I mean, and I feel like many people, so many people do share their stories of, how they got to where they are. But I feel like a lot of times, because society is sometimes uncomfortable with emotions, I feel like people are not truly able to authentically show who they are and how they got there, because
Mm-hmm.
society will, judge them different ways. Oh, this person's just showing off. This person's just trying to be a one upper. This person this person that. And I feel like, automatically we already have negativity before we can even, put our eyes on something. It's like negativity, negativity, negativity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think before we actually hopped on here, you and I were having a good conversation about how when we say or do or show up a certain way and it does what I call prickles someone, meaning evokes some sort of really strong emotion within you. It could even be happiness or anger or irritation or
Right.
whatever. And all it is a reflection of something within you that needs healing. So if you find yourself listening to something, driving in traffic and getting cut off, like
Yeah.
really it's providing you an opportunity to say what's really going on,
Yeah.
right? What is this really saying to me? Because I mean, I might irritate a lot of people or prickle a lot of people, but I'm here to say that every single thing in your life that is painful for you
Mhm.
is a projection of the mind. So essentially, you have control over that,
Mhm.
but you only have control if you go and do the work to get curious and to heal and to forgive. I
Yeah.
mean, I think the deepest level of healing is forgiveness.
Mhm.
And so often today I feel like there's like this diet pill culture for healing.
Yeah.
Like I see advertisements, it's like, give me 30 days and I'll heal the trauma of your childhood. Like that is not how it goes.
Yeah. We need
I'm
more than
sorry.
30 days. Come on. I mean,
Well,
you're unpacking years, you know?
yeah, and it's a lifelong journey. I mean, really started this journey back when I was 33. I had always dabbled in self-help and I mean, I have over a decade of going to counselors. I feel like I should have my own psychiatry degree because
Right.
I paid that much probably and I attended enough.
Yeah.
But the true intentional work really started when I was 33. I'll be 40 here this August. And by no means am I done. Like it is a lifelong journey of peeling back the layers of the onion.
Yeah.
And if someone promises you some sort of healing, first of all, they can't tell you what you need. You have your answers
Right.
within,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So when they say, I've got the blueprint to fix you, run the other way.
Right.
Right.
There is
But
no
if they
blueprint.
say, I've got the blueprint to help you get to your own answers within, okay. Right. They
Yeah.
own that they aren't God.
Mm-mm.
Right. Like,
Right.
or whatever you believe is the greater being controlling this earth, that
Right.
we are not that.
Mm-mm.
Like, I don't know what you need, D, but I know how to ask you some really good questions so you can figure it out and be a
Yep.
really good reflection.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I got on that tangent,
Oh,
but
it doesn't matter. It was great.
but those are my thoughts. Like it's an opportunity, it's an invitation,
Right.
right? Those extreme emotions are always an invitation, and not just the negative ones, but the ones that like create huge excitement and happiness.
Yeah.
Get curious, because don't you want more of that in your life?
Yeah. Why am I so happy? Why do I feel this way? Maybe I should be doing this more.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. I actually I used to paint a lot, and
Me too. Me too.
I kind of stopped, and I was saying that I had someone very special to me pass away, so I was like, you know what, I have to grieve. So I went and I just bought like a whole bunch of canvases, and I just started like really just had them all and was like, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, and afterwards I'm like, wow, I feel amazing. I kind of got my grief on paint. So I think anytime you could do anything creative too is going to bring out that authenticity that we so need in order to do the healing and do the work.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
and I believe like it's so beautiful you said that, because probably a couple of years ago I really started I painted and stuff when I was younger, but I found my way back to it, and I would do it every weekend. I go to the beach and I paint there, and it first started out as a reconnection with my inner child
Right.
and kind of dating my inner child, and then it is transformed into I just love doing it. And it expresses what I've picked up over the week, right?
Right.
Like whether it's with clients, whether it's, interaction with the guy on the corner, whatever
Yep.
it may be, it allows it a safe space for it to be channeled out. And the reason why I think that happens
Yeah.
is I truly believe, the word inspiration, you feel inspired. I
Right.
believe it's in spirit. It is when you are the closest to your highest self, the Holy Spirit, whatever you believe it is
Right.
when you become inspired. Well, most of the time when we are being creative, there is some sort of inspiration. Like you said, you had all these canvases and you're like, I'm gonna do a little here, little there, little this. Like you were creating inspiration, aka D was accessing the divine piece of herself, which when you allow that piece, that divine part of yourself, whether you believe it's Holy Spirit or your
Whatever
high
it is.
self, whatever, you are giving it permission to do the healing that is needed in that moment, because it speaks truth. It is
Right.
truth. And it's like, okay, so if you lied to me right now, D, and I was like, nah, D, you're lying to me. You'd be
Yeah.
like, no, I swear,
Yeah.
I swear I'm telling you the truth. But if you were telling me the truth and I was like, no, D, you're lying, you'd be
Yeah.
like, you'll figure it out one day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's how that divine piece of you is like, it knows truth. It knows, it can
Yeah.
see the trajectory of what this timeline looks like.
Right.
And it knows eventually you will listen, but it is not going to fight for your attention. It
Right.
needs invitation and for you to not only listen, but to
Right.
receive. So,
Yeah.
I believe that's probably what happened with you
Yeah.
within that moment of allowing yourself to just be in
Mhm.
spirit, to
Yeah.
fully be in spirit. Like that is being. When they
Yeah.
talk about like Buddha talks about
Right.
being or
Being.
anything like
Yeah.
that is being.
Yep. And that's, I feel like that's when you're just, you're not thinking, right? Like you're just doing. Like it was, there was a point I was making a bird, and I didn't know I was making a bird. I was just kind of like, doing it with the paint. I was like, oh, that looks like a wing. All right, let me do it this way and this way. And then the next thing I know, I have a nest with like a whole bunch of baby birds.
Mm.
And I did really don't have the skill, but I wouldn't think from the intellectual self that I
Yeah.
had the skill to paint a lot of these things, but I just sort of surrendered. So I love that you kind of brought that piece into it, because I really did. There was a moment where I just closed my eyes and I'm just like, I need therapy, and this is the only type of therapy I think is going to heal me. And then I just let go, and I was like, well, whatever. And that's why I had like, 5 canvases out, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, right now I feel like painting this. Well, hold on, let me go back to this.
I
So
love
it
that.
really is, it kind of like, it wasn't my hand, it was the
Mm-hmm.
universe's hand, going to do it. So that was an amazing, I love that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. It's just so cool how those moments come up. And I think you used a really key word, which was surrender, and also the notation that you weren't thinking,
Right.
right? So I'm a firm believer this is an illusion. We live within an illusion that's a projection of one mind, and it was projected by the ego. So there's like two parts of the mind. One is your high self, your Holy Spirit, the other part is the ego.
Yeah.
The ego is the one that's loud and chaotic and created the brain,
Right.
created what we know today as thinking, the
Right.
intellect, right? So when you're operating through that lens, it's coming from a place of fear and
Yep.
anger and hurt and death and despair and separation. But
Yeah.
what you did was you allowed yourself to access the mind,
Right.
right? The belief system of your highest self's mind, which is so hard to wrap our mind around, because to wrap our brain around, I
Right.
guess, because it's not your brain, right?
Right.
It's what is projecting this universe,
Right.
projecting everything we see. Um, so that's a tricky piece, but language
Mhm.
was created by the ego belief system. So of course the words aren't there to really explain the
Right.
highest self or Holy Spirit, because it doesn't want you to know, first of all, and second of all, it doesn't know it, right? It doesn't understand it. So it's more of that, like you said, surrendering. Do not go through the brain, but just allow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, because when you're talking, it brought it up, like when you do something without thinking, and we'll take the negative stuff out. So if you do something positive without thinking, that's your positive habit. That's your positive thinking. And that's when you really are in tune to who you are, because you're doing it automatically. And that, what are your thoughts on that? Because I was thinking that when you were talking.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like tell me more. Give me like an example.
Yeah. So I was thinking, let's see. So when I'm with my kids, for
Yep.
example, and they are upset, or no, they're not upset, they're hurt. So what I do is automatically I go and get the peroxide. I go and get the pads. I go and get everything. And I'm not thinking I need to go get this. I just see the cut and I know that's what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So doing that instinctively, rather than thinking I need to go get this. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I mean, it's definitely a positive, right? But it's something within the illusion, right?
Right.
So it is through the ego lens. It is an instinctual thing. It doesn't mean it's negative, right?
Right.
But it's acknowledging the body as real.
Right.
When in fact, like if this is an illusion, essentially it's a dream. And if
Right.
your child got a cut in the dream last night and you didn't care for it, it
Right.
wouldn't end in death, right?
Right.
But because we feel it's like you've heard of lucid dreaming, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like we're during our waking time,
Yeah.
it feels like a very lucid dream, like we
Right.
have control, like things really matter.
Right.
But in fact, they matter just as little. So, an example like Jesus.
Right.
And I'm not coming from a place of organized religion. I want people to know that.
Yeah.
But Jesus as a symbol and what he symbolized, whether he lived or not, as a symbol.
Yeah.
So in organized religion, we have turned the crucifixion and the resurrection to being about the body.
Right.
When in fact, what Jesus was trying to say is it's not. I've overcome the body. That's why they can nail me to the cross and I can smile. That's why you think I'm dead and I can rise above, because death only exists within the illusion in your body. Your body only dies. You do not die.
Yep.
The mind does not die, but somehow I know how we misconstrued it. We're a bunch of people who are really stuck in our ego. And then of course, through the lens, the Bible was written and everything else that makes sense. But in fact, it was Jesus showing that he had figured out what this illusion was and he had overcome it. And he was saying, like, you can do this too.
Right.
Like that is what true enlightenment is. So today, like in the New Age movement, enlightenment is seen as a higher level of consciousness, right? Well, there is no level of hierarchy in a dream. So if in fact we are truly dreaming, then a higher level of consciousness would not have any more weight than like a very low level of consciousness, right? Because it's a dream and everything is equally a dream.
Right.
So in fact, what they're doing is just being more lucid within the dream, right? Being able to do more things at a higher level consciousness, because consciousness is what was created so that we could observe this illusion. So true enlightenment is waking up from the dream, seeing the dream for what it is and not placing weight on it. Jesus did. I mean, he, the symbol of Jesus in the stories, right? He caused people to see who were blind. He, people walked, like he did all this miraculous healing when in fact he just saw that he could just pair with the mind that was here and change what it looked like. Right.
Well, I never looked at it this way. No, this is really cool. That's a different way of looking at it.
Yeah. I think so often in the world today, we so easily identify with the crucified Jesus, right? Because we think we're a bunch of sinners walking around and but what the purpose was for us to identify with the resurrected Jesus, that we have the ability to see. First of all, we can't sin, because if you killed someone in your dream tonight, Dee, would you wake up tomorrow and be like, I sinned? No, you'd be like, I dreamt that. Like that didn't really happen.
Really do it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, maybe the body sinned, but you are not your body. So this movement of your body being in your temple, get out of your mind into your body, I don't subscribe to anymore. I used to, very much so. Like I was very big into that. But for me, I'm coming from this place of curiosity now. Like I question everything. I always did as a kid, but I shut it down because I had talks too much on report card, all that crap.
All that stuff.
But I found my way back to really questioning, like, why should I just like allow something at face value? And so when I really moved into like manifestation and higher level consciousness and get out of my mind and into my body, and my body's a temple, it still didn't feel like that was like the end game. I was like, there's gotta be more. So I just kept asking more and more questions. And because I was open and surrendered, the answers found their way. And I'll be honest, this understanding of what is going on here feels like I don't have to ask any more questions. And it is so weird because I love asking questions, but it feels like I have finally found the path back home.
Wow. I mean, how incredible is that? Because
it's pretty incredible.
Like, as you're saying that, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like is that what I'm doing? Looking for it still? Because since we already popped the lid off of organized religion, so I grew up Catholic, and I, was not a great teenager, right? Didn't always make the best choices. And when I moved here to Virginia and started a family, we just went to a Catholic church because that's what we were supposed to do. And I didn't necessarily question everything in there because I was always told really not to. But when I started to do so, I was like, well, maybe I'm not Catholic. Maybe I'm not any religion. Maybe because I believe in God and I believe that Jesus, was real, and I believe all that stuff, but everything in the middle gets kind of mucky for me. And I don't need to know. For me, I just want to know that there's something bigger than I am. And it brings me comfort to think, oh, well, we're just kind of all beings in the universe. And, one being says, hey, do you want to go down to Earth and live a life for however long? And then it goes down and it consumes a body and live the life, then die, and go back and repeat. Like, that's kind of like where I'm at now. I don't, it might change. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Right. And that's the beauty of it. And that's why, so I recently launched a Patreon called Big Miracle Energy, Be Me. And essentially, I share videos in there about these thought systems, right? And, live Q&As, but I tied it into a Discord. And in that Discord is where I just want everyone to get curious and be respectful, right? Because I was only able to get to this place because people allowed me to question, allowed me to be like, but that doesn't make sense. And then for them to be like, well, have you thought of it this way? But very respectful, honoring, free of judgment, curious place. So that's why I created it, because I think, at least for me, there wasn't a space like that per se, right? It was really like either you're going to obtain higher level consciousness or you're going to go to church or you're going to be an atheist.
Yeah. There wasn't a middle.
Yeah. No. And this is a place for, I don't care if you go to church every week. I don't care if you're an atheist, because what we're discussing is not organized religion. It's about understanding this illusion and figuring out how we get home if that's what we choose to do.
Right. Exactly.
I don't care what you call it, but the fact of the matter is the only way to get home is to practice forgiveness and love at the level of the mind, which means realizing none of this ever happened. So it's like, again, if tonight in your dream, Dee, I ran over to your dog, tomorrow, but tomorrow morning you would wake up and you might feel a little heavy, right? And then you think about it and you're like, oh, I dreamt that Ashley ran over my dog, but that didn't really happen. In that second, all the shame, the guilt, the anger, the sadness, the separation is gone because it didn't really happen. That is forgiveness at the level of the mind, is not being like, oh, Dee, you hurt me, but I forgive you. That's acknowledging that it happened.
Yeah, exactly. That's not true forgiveness.
No, that's not forgiveness at the level of the mind. That's still acknowledging something occurred.
Right.
Instead, acknowledging like this was just a projection, this is just a dream, it never actually occurred. And that's like the deeper level of understanding Jesus, right? He's
Right.
just a symbol. And in fact, the symbol truly comes down to the point that he never lived and he never died, because this is a dream.
Right.
He was never crucified. Yeah, in the dream he was, that body was, but
Right.
him
Himself,
as the
his being.
as the eternal being he is, was never lived, never died, and was never crucified. The body, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Our
the
body
body.
does fucked up shit all the time.
All the time.
Right. But in fact, we are not our body. You are an eternal being, and you will continue to come back here until you have practiced all of your forgiveness lessons and you have obtained true enlightenment, which is seeing this place for what the fuck it is.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I love that. Like this, talk about like, I didn't real think that this conversation was going to go here, but I love it. Because I really do think that the first thing is having that safe space to be able to talk about things like this without people getting offended.
Right.
Because for me, it's okay that you feel this way, and that this is your viewpoint, and it's okay if it's not mine.
Exactly.
But I could still listen to you, and you could still listen to me, and maybe tomorrow, maybe 5 years from now, maybe never, it will spark something that needs to be sparked within you.
Right.
But maybe it won't, and that's okay too. And it's just being able to surrender and say, whatever happens, happens. And I'm not going to let the ego take over and make everything personal about me specifically, because it's not necessarily what's going on.
Yeah, 100%. And I totally agree. And I truly believe your highest self or the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to believe that other belief system you have that isn't the ego. When we have deep conversations like this, if you aren't ready to consciously hear the things that you're meant to hear in this conversation, that piece of you holds on to it. Yeah. And I experienced this personally. And all of a sudden, when it's time, when you are ready to full accept it, it's like all these downloads. It's like they've been carrying this bag around, and like you're just download after download after download, and just understanding at a level you never knew was possible.
Right.
And for me, I'm a firm believer, the teacher becomes the learner through teaching. The learner becomes the teacher through learning. So I only learn more about truth through teaching, through sharing.
Yes.
Right. So I see it as this reciprocal, and there's no one above or below. There's no hierarchy of anything in this dream, because literally just think back to dreams, right? Like nothing, like you could maybe be having dinner with the Pope tonight in your dream, but it doesn't matter. It was a dream, right? So it didn't matter he was the Pope, because it was a dream.
Right.
Just like today, it doesn't matter if you make millions of dollars and I make $5 a year, because it's a dream. I'm dreaming I'm making $5. You're dreaming you're making millions. This is not reality.
Yeah. So like there's different dimensions.
No,
not dimensions. So how
remember, there's no real hierarchy. So the ego wants to separate, right? It all started from an initial separation, from us having a tiny mad idea, and that's a whole nother conversation.
We'll do that later.
Yeah. Or I'd encourage people to check out my Patreon too. I know that's
I would like you to share that information at the end.
Yeah. And even if you only signed up for 1 month, I have like the foundational videos of like this thought system that you could go through. But anyway, so the ego wants separation. Well, how do we separate? We separate through hierarchy levels, through colors of skin, through like if you literally look at this illusion, D, there is separation in everything. Yeah. Right? Like right here, I have multiple ice cubes. That's separation. I mean, I know it's silly, but it's like, if you really start paying attention, everything is separation. So then when we talk about different dimensions, that's a part of the ego thought system, because that is separation.
Okay.
Pure non-dualistic oneness is like is what Holy Spirit,
Yeah.
highest self, the divine, whatever you believe is pure oneness. And it's
Right.
not we are many connected into one. It is we are one projected into many in this dream, right?
Yeah.
So for example, if your dream tonight, D, that you're at a concert and there's thousands of people there,
Mhm.
they weren't actually there. It was coming from your mind,
Right.
1,000 people.
Right.
Do you see? So that's what's
Yeah.
happening here is one
Yeah.
mind is dreaming. What are we up? Like 8 billion people?
Yeah. But you'll still feel it. So like if I, you know, if my dog was hurt, we'll just go back to that one. So like if my dog was hurt in my dream, I'm still gonna wake up and I'm still gonna feel it, but I need to acknowledge that, like you said,
Yeah,
this is a dream. This isn't really my, I'm feeling this
truth.
because I have that connection to that emotion, but it didn't really necessarily happen.
Right. Well, and the reason why that is because you're always dreaming,
Right.
right? It's just once you're sleep dreaming and wake dreaming, but it's all dreaming. That's why.
Right.
I mean, have you ever had a dream where it felt so real? Like you
Uh-huh.
had to ask someone, you're like, oh my gosh, like,
Yes.
did this happen? Did you tell
Yes.
me this? Well, it's because
Yeah.
it's the same thing. It's
So,
just feels different.
so question. So what happens if it then comes true, whatever was in the dream? So do you have any aspect about that? So for example, so my father just passed away. I did actually have a dream that he passed away a little differently than it played out, but I did have that dream about a month ago, 2 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
2 months ago. And he just recently passed. So like, is there any correlation with that, do you think?
So, oh, because my dad committed suicide, and I literally had a dream the night before that he hung himself.
Right.
So that's not how we did it, but he committed
Right.
suicide the
But
next
yeah.
day. So I don't know 100%, but this is my thought: is
Yeah.
again, your mind has two pieces, and not your brain, your mind,
Right.
or two belief systems is what it
Right.
is. So the ego belief system, or the Holy Spirit or highest self belief
Mhm.
system, right? So you're always operating with that, but
Right.
the Holy Spirit, highest self, knows can see the whole timeline, right?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
ego has already planned out the timeline. So it's like, you know what's going to happen. You just can't remember. You can't tap
Right.
into it right now. That's another piece. Like Jesus had the ability to know what was going to happen to him because
Right.
he fully was in touch with realizing this is an illusion. So it's kind of like if you're watching a movie and you've already had a spoiler and you know
Yeah.
how it's going to end, but you're still watching it.
Yeah.
Same thing. So
Yeah.
essentially,
Okay.
I mean, it could be multiple reasons why it happened. It could be maybe your high self felt that kind of
Yeah.
introducing it in an easier manner a month prior would begin the process of acceptance and healing.
Right.
Maybe, so many different things, but you already knew it was going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, because it's always dreaming. So there's no
Right.
like it's
Yeah.
just it weighs the same as your father passing away. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel that way, of course, and like I
Right.
don't want to negate
Oh,
it.
no, not at all.
But in this illusion, it does equal the same because he's not his body died.
Yes.
His his body died, but in fact, he is still apart, and I'm guessing he's coming back in a new life, and I don't know how long that takes, but maybe he's being born today. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, I mean, and nobody really knows. To me, I think that's what makes it fun and interesting because there's so many possibilities. And of course, if you subscribe to a specific religion, then you probably have you know what's going on based on your belief system. But I mean, in the end, we nobody really
No.
knows
Right.
unless you
Well,
die.
I think so. I guess I would challenge that in the fact of we do know truth. We just don't know how to listen to it yet. So it's in there.
That's fair.
It's like, is it Alice in Wonderland? Maybe like she knew how to get out, but she had to remember, or there was some movie where it's like, we knew she knew how to get out, but she couldn't remember.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where we're at. And like, you go along this journey and, you know, there's times that you hear something and it prickles you or it like sparks some sort of inside. Well, it's because it's activating your highest self. Like it's, and whether it's a healing opportunity or it's some sort of truth lies within there, or you see something in that you wish you had in you. There's a whole multitude of things, but we've all felt that before. And it's because it's a remembrance, right? That's what we're here to do, is to remember what we are, why we are here, and how we get home if we choose to. That's the other cool thing. Like I have conversations with people like this all the time, and they'll be like, well, what if I want to keep coming back? Okay. Like that's fine. You can keep coming back, because reality is some people are having a really fucking good dream right now. Right. But if we look at the rules of duality, which means, you know, for every male, there's a female. That's if you know much about duality, that means you will have just as many crappy lifetimes as you have amazing. So though you may be a billionaire this lifetime, there's a grand possibility that next lifetime you will be homeless on the street.
Right.
I mean, but you can do whatever you want, but there is a timeline already laid out when like the whole script's already created. That's a whole nother conversation too. There's a lot to unpack here. And like I said, like I'm not an expert. I'm still learning. I'm still beginning to understand. But the coolest thing is I don't expect you, Dee, to have the same beliefs tomorrow as you have today.
Right.
So I hope you don't expect any different of me. You know what I mean? Because that's that safe space. I will say the belief system I have today, I feel it wholly in like that piece of me that isn't my brain. So it will never drastically change. It just may get more and more clear.
Right. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. I feel like I've just chatted quite straight.
I feel like I love it. So, I mean, you're totally fine. So what's, I guess let's talk about authenticity. So we still have a little bit of time. So how did you get to this point, where, you know, you sort of had that fuck it, I'm being authentic moment? So what, and you don't need to necessarily go into detail, but like, was there a big event that happened?
Yeah. So I had locked myself up since I was a really young girl. That's a whole long story, but at the age of 32, I was getting a divorce and realized that all of my happiness, I thought I was the healthiest physically, mentally, and emotionally I'd ever been, and happiest, until all of a sudden everybody was taking those things away, right? Which was the house, the car, the family, the career, like all of that was being ripped out from under me. And I was really big into mindset work at that time, and meditation and journaling. But what I found is that mindset work is like the icing on the cake. It will not withstand a major life event. The deep healing and forgiveness is what will withstand the test of time. But so I completely fell apart, did things I never thought I was capable of, got in trouble at work, really started rebonding with my inner child and finding my way back home. And I remember, so I was on this journey a couple of years, and really on that journey of finding my authentic self, remembering and allowing her to come free, because she was never lost. Like I used to say finding, but in fact, she was never lost. She was always there. And I had a new boyfriend at the time, and you know, that's another story for a different day, but I was repeating a lot of the same patterns still. And in that, there were these yellow Reebok tennis shoes, like bright yellow. They're a little too far away, but I would show you. And I used to do what I call polling people. So when there was something I wanted to do that was a little like out of the box,
Uh-huh.
I would ask as many people as possible and then make my decision based on the feedback I got,
Okay.
right? So that was me not trusting myself. And I
Right.
had already polled myself like 3 months prior on these shoes and asked everybody, and everybody said they're ridiculous. They look like Ronald McDonald shoes,
Yeah.
but I love them so much. But because everybody said they were crap, I didn't order them.
Yeah.
And then I kind of woke up one day and had this aha moment of like, no,
Mhm.
no, I am stepping into my authenticity and I don't give a F anymore.
Yeah.
I ordered those tennis shoes. And from that day forward, major life decisions were made that now aligned fully with what I say is it a full F yes or a
Yeah.
full, then if it's not, it's a full F no.
Right.
Right. If you call me, Dee, and you're like, hey, you want to go to coffee? And I'm like, I guess that doesn't happen. It's
No.
like I'm all in or I'm all out.
It's
There's no
never an
middle
option.
ground. Yeah, 100% anymore. So that was really kind of a shortened version by far of my journey, but it had a lot to do with forgiveness, going back and not necessarily going back. So a lot of times with this healing, people think that we should go back and uncover all these traumatic things and heal them. I'm a firm believer that really all there is the present moment, right?
Right.
So if you just focus on the issues you're having today,
Yeah.
you will heal the past. It's about forgiving in the moment, and it will heal those things that happened prior. So it was
Right.
really just like operating day to day and understanding like, okay, why are you going out and having sex with random men,
Yeah.
Ashley? Okay. Well, your grandpa left when you were young, this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Blah, blah,
Forgiving
blah.
that and then
Yeah.
moving forward. I sometimes have clients that come to me and they're like, hey, Ash, like, I want to work with you because of this incident in my childhood. And I literally say to them, like, we're not going there. Like,
Yeah.
if that happens to come up, then we will cover it. But we're just handling what is happening day to day.
Yep.
And it was really cool. Like a month later, she was like, we haven't even talked about this moment, but I thought about it the other day and it does not hold any weight anymore. And
Yep.
I'm like, see, because it doesn't, we don't have to intentionally
Yeah.
go on an excavation
Yeah.
archaeological dig.
Yep.
Instead, it's how do we be that parent today?
Right.
Right? How does D show up as that parent for little D today? Because she's still
Yeah.
in there today,
Yeah.
right? Like she's still there. So why would you need to go back and change something that can't be changed, first of
Right.
all,
Exactly.
but today can be? So I mean,
I love
that's a long short of authenticity. And my favorite statement is like, I know I'm not for everyone and I don't want to be. I don't want to be. We were talking about that before this call.
Yeah.
Being for everyone is draining and
It
it's
is.
just so sacrificing.
It is. And then you really lose who you are. Um, you know, because I had used the word water it down, is what I had said before. You end up watering yourself down. And some people can turn it on and off. Like they can turn, okay, this is how I'm going to be at work. This is how I'm going to be, at home. This is how I'm going to be here, which I get, but I feel like you have to first know who you are at a base level. And then from there, then it goes kind of situational, but like at a base level, you need to know sort of who you are and what you stand for. And you don't need to unpack all your trauma to figure it out. You can just base on today. What's
Right.
happening today? How did I react today? How could I have done it better tomorrow? And that's sort of, I think that that's one of the key takeaways
Yeah.
from here.
And I think too, like I'm a believer, and that's where I've gotten to in my healing, is that you never need to be anyone else. I used to think that still, like, say if I went to a fancy event or, hung out with millionaires versus the homeless person, I needed to like adjust myself a little bit. But like you can ask anyone who knows me, who you see on the podcast, who you see at a workshop, who you see on my Patreon, who you see out to lunch with friends, who you see if I ever got to have lunch with the president is always the same Ashley.
Right.
I do believe that there is, a lot of people that do find their authenticity, but still feel that they need to like adjust
Right.
and not major, right? I'm not
Yeah.
saying they're like a complete
Sometimes
chameleon.
yeah.
Right. But I don't think you do. I don't think you ever need to, D. And I just tried it. What I did was I was like, I'm done. I'm done like at all.
Right.
Like no adjustment at all. And it was interesting. Like we had, I was part of a mastermind before and I would just, everybody be all dressed up and I'd show up in my like Prana pants and my Birkenstocks. And I was like, this is who I am. I'd show up with like a unicorn, a horn on my head and running around outside. So I experimented and tried it and people loved me more because they knew that who they met, no matter where, was Ashley. Yep. And she was never changing.
Yep.
And you know how much energy it gave me back? Because even that slight, like, I'm gonna talk a little better for this person, or you know what I mean? Even that slight little change is energy draining.
Right.
And I think it takes a toll on your highest self as well, because it's you still not fully accepting truth.
Right. Right. And truth.
I mean, and anybody listening who's doing that, like truly feels authentic, but kind of like, say goes and has lunch with the in-laws. Like, I feel like that's a good example.
Yeah.
And feels like they have to be a little different. Try to just be you. You'll find out that like, yeah, maybe at first they're kind of like, who's this? But if you've only been tweaking a little bit, they probably won't even notice, first of all. And second of all, you will just feel so much more free because you're constantly analyzing in your head.
Yeah.
What am I doing? And that takes a crap ton of energy.
It really does. And it also like it can affect relationships too, because if you're someone who authentically is an out loud processor, like that's what I do. I'm gonna be talking to myself while I'm, doing work,
whatever.
I'm always talking about it. And my family now like does not answer me anymore.
Yeah.
Like, opinion, they'll be like, oh wait, no. But and I feel like that sometimes if you're not around the right people for you, because like you said, not everyone's going to be for you, and that's why you have to have people who attract the same energy that you're giving out. And when you have that, I really do feel like that's when the magic happens, and that's when you can really be authentic to yourself, because you're not trying to be someone else.
Right. And you just won't naturally like be around those people.
Right.
Like, I don't want those people in my life that expect me to cater and be someone else around them. Like, they don't want to be my friend then.
Right. Right. Well, what was it? Was it Marilyn Monroe or someone that says, if you can't love me,
I'm awful with quoting people. Okay. So
it was, if you can't love me at my worst, then you don't deserve to love me at my best. I think it's something like that, which I feel like, holds, a lot of weight, because, I am going to be different with the people that I'm completely authentic with, because I'm someone that I still do water myself down, with other people. But now that I'm, a business owner and everything like that, I'm learning to trust myself a little more. But sorry, I'm going to go on a tangent now.
No, I love it. I think it's so good. And I love to just your awareness, D. Like, I think that's a big piece. Like, if you water down yourself, sometimes the worst thing you can do is deny it. Right. Because that puts way more weight. Just own it, right? And be like, I'm not ready right now to do this. Or maybe I never want to. Yeah. But owning it is so, like, that alone relieves so much shame and guilt, because otherwise it's like a hidden secret.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And I love it because, like, that's what my husband and I try to do with our children, is just we say, be you, boo, be you. Like,
I
you do
love it.
you do what you feel is right. And of course they're still young, so we still, try to guide them.
Mm-hmm.
But they, definitely have good heads on their shoulders. And at the end of the day, they're good human beings. And I think it's because we also openly have these type of conversations,
Mm-hmm.
like talking about religion and stuff like that. Like, we will openly have these conversations and try not to push our opinions on them,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to kind of you have to experience the world to kind of know how you feel about it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're going, like, my kids, they see it through my lens and they see it through their lens here in our small town.
Yep.
But their perception is going to change if they go somewhere else. So I think just knowing that, knowing who you are and where you have to adjust yourself when you're with certain people, if that is something that you do, because you're always going to be around people that aren't, like, in the grocery store or wherever in your neighborhood, wherever, you're going to be around people that don't understand you. But
Mm-hmm.
you don't need them to understand you, I think, is the biggest thing, is you don't
Right.
need that validation from other people. You think you need it, but you don't.
Right. Because that's what we're like told, like validation from our parents,
Yeah.
things like that. A lot of times that's ingrained. And what I always like to tell people too, and I think it's important for kids to know as well, is that you are in no obligation to be who you were 5 minutes ago.
Nope.
So it gives you the opportunity to like maybe believe something one day and then change another. And I think that's a huge issue we have in government and
Yeah.
politics, or politics and religion, is that people have like, they feel like because they've sided with somewhere that they now have to fully like 100% believe everything. They can never change their mind. It's got to always be this way.
Yeah.
And like, that's why things are messed up in the world.
Well, yeah.
Just admit it doesn't work anymore and move on, right? I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
it's your
Yeah.
own judgment within.
It is true. I mean, we sometimes we try to fit things in that just shouldn't be fit. Like, when I think about my job that I was in, I tried to be the corporate person. I am not corporate. I am not a corporate person. I am just not made to fit in one box. I am made to fit in multiple boxes and break multiple boxes and
Yeah,
rebuild
me too.
multiple boxes. Um, so I think, honestly, a huge takeaway is that self-awareness, is
Mm,
again, knowing who you are, knowing
mm-hmm.
how you show up in the world, knowing how you want to show up in the world, and really kind of listening to yourself and believing in yourself and trusting in yourself, that your body, yourself, your mind, and so on and so forth. And if you don't know it, start trying to
Figure it out.
figure it out.
Yeah, you can. You can know it if you want to. You can know it. There's amazing, you're a coach, I'm a coach. There's therapists. There's so many different options. Like, there's no reason that if you truly want to heal yourself and know who you are, like, there's no excuse,
There's
right? The only, like, if your only excuse is you, because there's
Yeah.
so much opportunity. I mean, even if you have $0, well, there's tons of free resources on podcasts and Zoom, and there's public libraries and all that. So yeah, there's no excuse. Just
Well,
period.
and something too is, if you want something bad enough, you'll find a way. Uh,
Oh yeah, you'll figure it out.
you'll figure it out. It might take you a long time. Like, you were talking about your journey. I've been on my journey for 12 years. And I feel like I'm just breaking the surface to where I want to be in the world. And I burnt myself out doing it. So I would
Mm-hmm.
say, know who you are, but know that it's not going to happen overnight. And you need to
Oh
give
yeah,
yourself grace, to allow yourself that space to make mistakes and figure out who
100%.
you are.
Yes, so beautiful.
Yay. Well, is there anything else that you want to share
I
with
mean, I guess I'll just
the
leave with my
website?
My favorite, well, yeah, I can leave that quick. So, my Patreon is Big Miracle Energy. My website, by the time this comes out, should be up and running. That's Big Miracle Energy. On Instagram, I'm Ash_Abramson. Reach out. I love conversation. Like we talked today, like I'm open to hearing your thoughts as long as you're respectful. I show up respectful and free of judgment.
Right.
But I want to leave with my favorite quote that I live every day by, and then also just a final statement to the listeners of, so my favorite quote that I aspire to every day is, "We're all just walking each other home," by Ram Dass. And I truly believe that. Like, you're not above me, I'm not above you. We're in this together, and only together can we get there. And then I always say this, and I truly believe this, in the end, remember you're worth it. Like, I wish someone would have told me that early on. But just remember you're worth it. You're worth the work. You're worth the exploration. You're worth finding your authenticity and truly living in it.
And it's not selfish either to
work
on yourself. So that's a perfect place to end. So thank you very much. I do want you to hold on just for one.